In this video, we'll be talking about why your countless hours spent studying lineups on YouTube, and probably even more time making sure you remember them in customs, is often a complete waste of time, if not even worse, and quite literally sometimes game losing. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Even pros use lineups, but for your average immortal or below player, these important differences might not be immediately obvious. So let's get right into it. First, I want to give a disclaimer. Lineups are not inherently bad. In fact, they can make or break certain key moments in a round to guarantee a victory. However, knowing when that lineup should be used is a key skill ceiling that separates lower ranked players from the higher ranked ones, and it's so easy to do it wrong. Something that has become meta in the lower ranks of Valorant is something I call the lineup meta. This meta is based around learning to play an agent like Viper or Killjoy, only to end up sitting in an obscure part of C-Long Haven playing for your lineup onto a spike which has already been diffused. Why do they lose with this lineup? Because they didn't understand the right time to position for it. When you are in a 2vx scenario and the enemy team is retaking the site, sometimes it is better to fight to stall a lane or go for a pick rather than play for a lineup that won't land in time to stall the spike. That nanoswarm or snakebite could have been used on the spawn walkout or garage, and it could have allowed you to isolate a duel with your other teammate. This is especially important to do when the enemy still has an agent with the ability to limit your line of sight, like Astra, Sage, or Jett. Because if you play lineups with those agents alive, you will not be able to counter them from sticking at half and swapping another teammate to stick it again under the cover of a Sage wall, an Astra Star, or a Jett smoke. But even if that's not the case, it doesn't mean free reign to sit back, relax, and be cringe. Ideally, you want even numbers or close to even, like a 5v4 or a 4v4, so that way your stall into the site allows your lineups to shine on the spike. The golden rule for post-plant: if there's less than 3 of your teammates alive, try to fight more on site. If there are 3 or more, lineups might save your round as the trades come through. The reason for this is because time is king in any round, so playing to drain the clock is a matter of context for what you and the enemy team is doing. Stalling for time is way easier with more players alive, especially when they are fighting for site control while you are in a lineup's position. However, this is why lineups can be a weakness to your gameplay. You cannot rely on lineups without your team having some sort of stopping power for the enemy retake. Your utility may have been better fighting for the site and denying the retake rather than running away to a safe spot while your team is at a disadvantage in numbers or utility. This is also why, even in a 4v4, it's not so nice to leave your Jett in a 1v4 on site, while you, your KJ, and Sova run back to play for the spike. If you ever feel your team is stupid and die too quickly while you're playing for your mollies, I'm really sorry for saying this, but maybe you're the one at fault. Maybe, perhaps, probably, yeah, it's you. Now, before I break down the rest of these tips, here is a quick trailer I'd like to show you.
Usually when I see a target, I won't miss. I try to find weaknesses wherever they are and just game by game try to pick up on anything I can. So this training course is a way for me to really showcase and demonstrate all the questions you guys have been asking, how to get better aim, and it really enables me to answer a lot more and kind of expand on the first video I made like so long ago about Valorant fundamentals.
If you're curious, the Yay course is now live on ProGuides.com. And now on to the next misconception. Lineups are not just for post plants or information on the Sova. There's more to it. Retake lineups can also create a huge opportunity for your team to win or lose rounds. But here we go again. The timing is critical. If we take Icebox B as an example, the most common spot for attackers to take in post plant is behind the yellow container. So in theory, throwing your snakebite there as soon as the retake begins is not only quite smart, but realistically speaking, also much more useful than having a post plant lineup on the other side. Maybe you even add a second lineup to your repertoire and learn one from on top of the B main white container. That way, the enemy's top-down main peek becomes a lot more difficult to execute, and thus your retake is easier. But again, these lineups are important to time well. Throw them right as your team begins the retake and you'll be a big asset. But if you're not in a lineup position, it's not worth wasting 15 seconds of the spike timer to go back to your studied spot. And the spot itself is important too. If you're exposed to enemies swinging you, you're spammable, or just way too far to assist your solo queue friends in the retake, then you're trolling too. While I've talked about characters with damaging lineups for quite a while now, agents with information lineups such as Sova, Fade, and KO are arguably even more important. This is because lineups for information have different goals than lineups for damage. Even though sometimes they can overlap, but most of the time, information lineups are for knowing where the enemy is positioned in defaults, executes, post plants, retakes, or even the mid-round. So the when of each of these types of scenarios is normally based around the rechargeable utilities time between the first dart, the first eye, or the first knife. Ideally, you want to use your rechargeables within the first 1 to 10 seconds of the round to get the best information possible on enemy positions and setups, though the time you use them should change depending on if the enemy is playing fast for sights or slow for map control so that you get the max value out of each piece of utility. Let's take Sova on Ascent for an example. Most Sovas will gravitate towards B site in order to play for spam with their Odins from lane using the recon dart to get information and potential spam onto the attackers. This common occurrence can be easily countered if the defending Sova darts right away. So delaying the dart by a few seconds will get you better information and spams before the attackers have a clue. This also may change the timing in the later parts of the half as the enemy has to wait for your dart on your time, which helps create your own timings. If they start to pressure you on lane by counter spamming with Sheriffs, Erezes, Odins, or Ops, you can find other areas to spam from freely while using your recon lineups. For B site, Market and Spawn are ideal for playing simple or complex recon lineups to catch the attackers as they push for sight. Throwing a dart above B main can be enough stall to stop a push or be good enough to catch them as they push to give them more free spam kills through smokes. The same can be said if you save your dart and let them push into sight. You can find lineups for the backside tree, deep B main, or front boathouse to clear angles after the attackers have taken full site control. Fade can be interchangeable most of the time with Sova in function, but an agent like KO fills a unique role unlike any other. KO denies pushes by disabling utility while gathering information at the same time, so a KO on maps like Fracture can take and deny a lot of key space with or without lineups. A great example of an area where lineups aren't needed would be A main. If you throw your knife against the wall near the door for sand, the defenders cannot break it from deep inside A main, specifically AWPing jets or chambers. This allows your team to take the orb control for ultimates, it allows you to flash into sand to fight, and you can flash through the site choke to support your team's execute. There are lineups for the same area onto the roof for A main, but the time for it to land for a fast take wouldn't help your team, especially in a ranked game. Take your time to do a lineup for a contact play, or set an idea everyone agrees with so that it would make more sense. For defense, KO may favor more for the B side since his knife can function the same as on attack, but without needing to fight for the space. With lineups, you can knife into dish or A main from tower and B site. Both of these knives are great for information and denying space for the attackers, but they won't make sense to do every round when the attackers keep hitting arcade and punishing you for throwing that lineup every round. Patience is key, so holding your knife lineup for key rounds or tendencies could make or break your games. From all these ideas, the context for when you play for lineups are more important than the lineups themselves, because finding what your utility's goal is to win the round has to involve more than the spike. Now let's get some tips on the best of the best lineup loving agents. Sova has had some major changes over the years, but has still long stood the test of time for being the best recon initiator. For his two primary pieces of utility, lineups are dependent on the round. Double shock darts are no longer viable, so try combining them with snake bites or astropoles to do massive damage. Recon darts are still best used early in the round to allow multiple recons in a single round, but don't rely on lineups for mid-round or late round use every time. Try using them more in combat to throw your opponents to break your dart or fight you and your team. Fade has very similar goals to Sova with her utility, but the way you use her kit focuses more on the in-the-moment fights. For example, her eye on retake for B-side Fracture is great in combo with Prowlers because she can not only directly show the opponents on the site, you can peek with her Prowler as a pseudo-flash as it runs at the enemies faster with recon pings. This makes lineups for Fade arguably more important than Sova. It has better verticality so that it can scan more areas on the maps like Fracture, Split, Bind, and Lotus. The classic controller Brimstone has one of the more powerful Molotovs in the game, which means in denying a lane or spike defusal, he is your man. Many of the fancy lineup locations you see across the map can cost you the round because they take too long to land. Instead of always going for lineups, try shooting your molly straight into the sky in desperate post plants. If your team is dying and you're halfway to the spike exploding, this molly can be blocked and it still kills the enemies in time for a free win. The snake bites from Viper can be a great stall for enemies in holding space or denying the spike, but they aren't great without a poison orb or a teammate's utility. The advantage Viper has is having two snake bites allows you to use one for in combat instead of post plant or denial, so that way you can start finding lineups that clear common 50-50 angles that defenders or attackers might play in. For example, a simple run and throw lineup onto Generator A site on Icebox will surely have more impact in taking a site than saving both of your mollies for a post plant that you can't guarantee you'll get. Killjoy's nanoswarms on either side are wonderful, but they're easily breakable pieces of utility to a Sova or a Breach. Try holding your nanos for retake and using them in lineups to clear locations similar to Viper, or creating traps in common post plant positions like behind the platform on C. Gecko's mosh ability is much larger than the average nanoswarm, but thankfully the lineups are the same. So any Killjoy players who are looking to expand can look to him or KO for a new agent to play. With Gecko, his thrash is almost always better in clearing space than denying plants, mainly since the rest of his kit is focused around flashing and stunning enemies. Play less around lineups in post plant and more for lineups around clearing common angles when taking space or denying choke points on defense. Fragment on KO is, like previously mentioned, the same lineup type as Killjoy, so don't feel too worried about this for post plant or clearing space. Instead, his knife is the best part about his kit, so try and use this for information and denial as often as possible, like for B market on Ascent for B splits. Another great habit to build is holding your knife for the first 5 to 10 seconds of the round so that you can catch your opponents who aren't expecting a late knife. This can create timings or stop pushes for you and your team. The slow orb doesn't do any damage, but that doesn't mean it can't help you take space. Split is a great example of lineups for Sage where you can take a site like A with lineups for rafters, or map and force enemies to fight in uncomfortable situations. Try comboing her slows on attack more often and executes with lineups to stop players from leaving the site. Sage also shares the same lineups as Viper's Snake Bites, so she's a great agent to play if you flex with Viper. Lastly, Phoenix's hot hands aren't great for post plant or clearing a lot of space, but they are good for clearing those close corners that you are going to push. On a map like Bind that's coming back into the pool, hot hands are a great tool to clear those close angles in hookah or ace short when pushing onto a site. But outside of niche situations like these, it's better to improvise with hot hands when fighting around the map. If you combo hot hands with a stun effect like Astra or Breach, it may have a higher impact than on its own. And that's going to wrap it up for the guide. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more like this, then make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next one.